As we all know, there's nothing easier than being an autistic person. Thankfully, all the usual suspects have come along to make things even easier for us. There's RFK Jr. who thinks that autism is because of Tylenol, so you shouldn't take Tylenol. There's anti-vaxxers who think that it's because of vaccines, so you shouldn't take vaccines. And then there's the demons. Not sure what to do about those.
People doubt if Jesus can heal autism because they don't fully understand what he actually endured on his way to the cross.
No, I don't think that's it. I get the cross. I am the cross understander. I don't get how that relates.
A lot of believers have been handed this fairy tale version of his suffering, like he just took a regular beating.
Sister, you might want to take a seat because I have some very bad news for you about this whole fairy tale thing.
We talk about the cross, but very few talk about the whipping post.
That's so weird. Why do they always have to make it weird? I don't want to hear about that. I've seen the movie. Psst, it kind of sucked.
Galatians 3:13 tells us that Jesus redeemed us from the curse, having become the curse for us.
Then why does autism exist at all? Shouldn't Jesus have taken that on and become the most autistic man to ever live? Jesus comes back from the dead with a sudden interest in trains, and everybody's like, what the hell are you talking about, Jesus?
I can only imagine how God must feel when people blame him for something that he sent his son to redeem us from.
You notice there's never any serious attempt to reckon with the implications here? Like, first of all, why does God design a system that so easily goes so far out of whack? Could he have, not done that? If I were God and I could see the future, I don't think I'd be like, yes, this will make me really sad in about 1,000 years' time. I am going to do that. Second of all, let's assume God did create a crazy situation like this where everything's just out of control. Why does he have to send his son to, die? Couldn't he just be like, there we go. Okay, solved that problem. They talk a big game about God's plan, but it sounds like God just has really bad planning skills.
We ask God, how could you give me this? Why my child? And God sacrificed his son.
I know this is a lot to ask of a Christian, but have you read this story? Jesus sacrificed his weekend. Granted, it wasn't the most fun weekend anyone's ever had, but put a bottle of whiskey in front of me, I'll show you a bad weekend.
This text saved my son's life. My oldest son, Champion, was diagnosed with autism, ADD, ADHD. Doctors said he would never be able to function, go to school.
But did the doctor really say that? That's the first question I have to ask because I don't trust people who lie for a living. This guy tells me the sky is blue. I'm going out to check for myself.
I looked at the doctor. I said, thank you for your opinion. I respect your opinion. But in this moment, faith is not an option.
Sorry, Doc. I know you study this for a living and I'm just a moron, but I have to go with my plan B of...
I face the facts, but I'm standing on faith. Because facts speak to the present condition of something, but truth speaks to the ultimate condition of something.
So what he just did actually has a term. It's called pseudo-profound bullshit because the words he just said mean nothing. They sound like they mean something because he's saying them with conviction, but if you actually look at the sentence itself, it's meaningless. And you can do it yourself. Just throw a bunch of words together, like, watch this. The fact of feeling is that feeling is freedom from the facts of truth. Totally meaningless, but if I were in front of a crowd, especially a church crowd, let's be honest, and I said that with enough conviction, they'd be clapping like barking seals.
I didn't just speak it. I looked at my son and I said, I'm pulling you out of this program. You will not go to this facility anymore. He was only 4 years old. I took him home.
I used my vast material wealth gained from my following of rubes to tell my kid's doctor to fuck himself. Essentially what he's doing is he's misusing the money given to him by his desperate audience to do crazy things, to tell them about in church, so he can say, glory to God, give me your last dollar. And they will, and then he'll do more crazy stuff, and the cycle repeats endlessly on and on.
We can't allow the enemy to get no room into our house.
If your son is really autistic, I hate to break it to you, but his enemy is already in your house. He looks in your mirror every single morning.
I looked at my son, I said, we're gonna fast. I'm gonna pray with you every day. We're going to meditate on this scripture every day.
Listen here, you little brat. I'm gonna starve your ass for 3 weeks, and when you're psychotic from malnutrition, I'm gonna shove this book in your face and start shouting it at you. Glory to God.
First, do you believe that autism is a demonic spirit?
Whenever somebody asks a question like this, you know what comes afterwards isn't gonna be great, so prepare yourself, but keep in mind, we got a couple more of these to go.
Not the child, not the baby, not the person.
Isn't this what you would call a meaningless distinction? If a demon is piloting a child, then what is the child but a demon car? And also, on an unrelated note, if a demon pilots a bird, is that a demon copter? Because I have some concerns about the seagulls.
Once God has confirmed to you, like he has confirmed to me and many others, that autism is a spirit.
How did God confirm this? How do you know it was God? How do you know God exists? There's a lot of stuff we have to establish here before getting to the point where we can safely say, God told me that autism is a demonic spirit.
The second thing, do you believe that God can deliver your baby from autism?
If he could, why wouldn't he? If God exists, I must assume that either he isn't powerful enough or just has no interest. Why do you even have to ask if it's such a cosmic injustice that God is required to help when you finally do ask? I think the easy conclusion here is that, in fact, God is not good all the time, because if there was somebody on Earth that could heal every autistic child all at once without anybody asking and they just didn't want to do it, we would think, wow, that person really sucks.
My daughter was healed from the demonic spirit that causes autism.
Sure he was. Let's see some proof of that.
As believers, we know that majority, if not everything we go through, is more spiritual than it is physical in this world.
How do you know that? What does that mean exactly? Can prayer just stop anything? And if it can, why doesn't it? You can pray and say, oh, my kid doesn't have autism anymore, but I've never seen Christians, no matter how much faith they have, pray over somebody who's lost a limb and that grows back. Never seen it happen. Never gonna.
So anyway, I was thinking...
Oh, really now? I think we're in trouble.
As somebody that used to watch a whole bunch of horror films, like just demonic movies...
Oh, doesn't that news give you the warm fuzzies inside?
I'm wondering if people are not able to draw that connection between what's actually demonic and what's not because of a lot of these movies.
Allow me to clarify. Demons, fun fact, are not real. They don't actually exist. I noticed a funny thing happens when you don't believe in the supernatural. Nothing supernatural ever happens. Isn't that odd?
And I do believe that some cases like that do exist. That's not every case. It's not always going to be that extreme, you know?
Well, if it does happen, that makes everything even weirder, because the only thing we have video evidence of is people screaming during exorcisms. And I don't know if you know this, but you can scream without being exorcised. You can scream normally. So how do I know that's demons? How am I supposed to know if they're not, like, if their heads aren't spinning and they're vomiting everywhere and climbing the walls? That's what I think of when I think of, like, a demonic movie. I don't think of, like, somebody doing death metal.
I have a very serious, controversial question to ask as a Christian.
If your question is controversial as a Christian, there's a pretty good chance it's controversial to everyone.
Do you think autism has ties to demonic oppression or possession?
Wow, when you're right, you're right. I have to give you credit there, because that is a serious and controversial question to which the answer is always unequivocally no.
I would never put out claims like this, especially as someone who has a granddaughter that has autism.
Yeah, I would never in a million years do what I'm doing right now.
But doing research...
Good news, everyone. We've got another citizen scientist hot on the trail. I'm sure this will be solved in no time.
Things such as pandas and autism and Tourette's that are all self-harming, kids acting out of character and saying, screaming, perverted things. Why would that not completely line up with biblical times?
Using the Bible, you can make an argument for almost anything. I've never found a Christian that couldn't make an argument for something stupid, and the reason is simple in this case. autism has always existed, but not just autism. ADHD, Tourette's, epilepsy, any number of things. And they didn't exactly have science back then. They had precursors to it, but they didn't have science, so they still assumed that everything in the world was controlled by spirits at all times. If your child is developing in a way that you didn't expect, if your child is unreachable, if your child is having seizures back then, what explanation do you reach for? You don't have terms like ADHD, you don't have like neuroscience, you don't have brain scans of this stuff. You have no idea what's going on. Obviously, you're going to reach for spirits. Hell, after this video, I'm going to need to reach for spirits.
Different things that are hurting that individual. Why couldn't that be? Why do we have to look at everything from a scientific point of view?
Well, because science has the evidence. That neuroscience I mentioned earlier, those brain scans I mentioned earlier, we actually know how to treat autistic children in ways that will help them grow and develop as best they can. We have good options for helping autistic children, but if you don't listen to them, they can't really do anything for you, and that's kind of part of the danger here, that if you reach for these explanations like brain ghosts, you're not going to be getting your child actual help.
Now, I'm going to hold y'all hand when I say this, but what truly needs to be studied is how they didn't trick y'all into calling demon possession autism.
I think what really needs to be studied is how a storybook from an ancient desert tribe trying to understand a world that was quite harsh indeed became the default explanation for how the world works to 1 billion people 2,000 years later.
And then now you got a real-life demon running your home.
You don't know how right you are, my guy.
You got every child, your man, you, and everybody else bowing and being subject to not offend a demon.
So there's kind of a cue here that he's talking to women, and I don't know why that is. I guess men never have autistic children or something. Single father out there with a demon-possessed child going, damn it, I thought somebody understood me.
When a child is gnashing their teeth and throwing themselves up against a wall and throwing themselves down and throwing their food down and growling and rah at you, that is a demon. That's demon possession.
Okay, so what's it mean when you do it? Because that was some pretty wild stuff there, my guy. Oh, I'm sure when he's doing it, he's just playing around. But when children are doing it, they can't help it. So that means demons. Sure, why not? Let's all be stupid together.
Well, I don't think all these kids that they're saying have autism. I think they're demonized.
Demonized? I think you've got the wrong word there, but the thing is, that's actually accurate to what you and people like you are doing.
I think it's what parents are allowing them to watch on TV.
Did I just hit a time warp back to 1936? TV? No one watches TV anymore, Grandma. You need to sit down. Be quiet for a little bit. Just watch what your grandkids are actually doing, assuming you're still allowed contact with them. They're all on TikTok. We've already moved to rotting our brains with this stuff.
What parents are allowing for toys.
It's not kids that play with toys now. That's all adults. Adults do that for themselves when they're old enough to have money. The kids are all on iPads.
Games, video games, all of that. You can't be opening your children up to that kind of stuff because they're so vulnerable.
Grand Theft Auto 6, demons. Civilization 7, somehow demons. Chess, you betcha, demons. God, dude, my mom was like this, and I love her and all, but oh my God, does that get tiresome to deal with. She threw away all my Pokemon cards one time when she went on this religious crusade, and they would be worth, I checked, I have a list. I have a full list of cards that I missed out on because of that, and I checked. Millions of dollars that collection would be worth today.
Autism itself is demonic, and you're hearing this from a mom whose son is diagnosed with autism because that's not his true identity.
What's really shocking to me is how many of these parents have actually gone in to get diagnoses, but the diagnoses themselves are so devastating that they have to enter this state of denial about it. They have to keep their children away from the only people who can actually help them, and they make this into a point of pride. They call this love. But it's not.
Anything that brings danger, chaos, or puts a child at risk, that's not the heart of God, and I've seen it.
In fact, I keep it in a jar in my basement.
We have the mind of Christ.
I've got that too. It's delicious. Anyway, I don't know about you, but I feel positively educated on the exact mindset that causes people to demonize autistic children. But let's be honest, autism was demonized long before these people got there. I already mentioned RFK Jr., and I didn't mention Andrew Wakefield, the guy who's responsible for all the anti-vax nonsense, but I think he deserves a whole lot of the blame as well, and so does the media, which just breathlessly goes along with anything that's controversial because controversy sells. It makes them lots of money, and it's very irresponsible, but they don't care. We've been far too complacent about this stuff for far too long, and now it turns out autistic demons are hiding around every corner. A diagnosis of autism is received as a personal failure, the result of bad medication or of sin or whatever. It's not received as just being something that happens sometimes, a normal variation in how humans work. And autistic people suffer greatly because of it. First, they suffer the indignity of denial, and then they suffer the injustice of mistreatment. Imagine if that dad from earlier really did make his autistic child fast for 21 days, his autistic 4-year-old. And you can even imagine worse than that if you really must. Exorcisms are a good example of that kind of thing because exorcisms sometimes result in grievous bodily harm and injury and death. But even if the worst things possible don't happen, even if they don't materialize, the child can still be viewed as being tainted with sin. If Jesus won't take it away, obviously they must have done something to deserve it. Anyway, that's all I got. So thanks for coming, thanks for being here, and oh wait a second, I've got one more thing.
He took the meltdowns, he took the aggression, he took the elopement, he took head banging.